All right, folks, we're 3 minutes past the hour. I want to maximize your time with our speaker today. So let's get started. Once again, my name is Nupur Arya, and on behalf of the HBS Club of India and the HBS India Research Center, thank you for choosing to spend your next hour with us. It gives me tremendous pleasure in introducing our speaker today, Niren Chaudhary, AMP class of 2016, Advanced Leadership Fellow of 2024. Niren actually needs no introduction. We're all familiar with his incredible business achievements as chairman of the board of Panera Brands, chief operating officer and president of Krispy Kreme, global president of KFC, and president of Yum India. He has clearly been satisfying our many cravings and indulgences over the years. While our waistlines might have expanded, thanks to him, Niren's passion for karate, golf, and tennis has at least kept him fit in the process. But what I found most interesting about Niren's journey is how he has translated his life's experiences, both the highs and the lows, those in the workspace and the personal space, some that he had control over, and others that he simply had to accept, into leadership lessons that we can all draw inspiration from. And this became particularly clear to me a few weeks ago. This was when I first interacted with Niren regarding today's session, and we prepped for it. And at the time, I happened to be at my first meditation retreat, trying to maneuver a midlife pivot, if you will, amongst the mountains in the midst of the monsoons. And in that spiritual state of mind, as I was being told that the heart chakra represents compassion and courage, I thought of Niren's innate ability to be empathetic and resilient as a father to Tanya, Ishan, and Aisha, and as a leader of large organizations navigating through crises. When I learned about the throat chakra and its connection to communication, I was reminded of how Niren uses his voice as a musician and as a mentor to shape young minds and to communicate in not one, but 4 languages. And as I try to focus on what I guess every yogi does, which is the sense of enlightenment with the crown chakra, I couldn't help but draw an analogy to Niren's deep sense of purpose, connection, and service, whether that's as a board member to the Tufts Medical Center or as an advocate for the world's largest stem cell donor registry. I could not be more grateful today to you, Niren, for giving us a glimpse into your kaleidoscope. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Joining Niren is Aditya Ghosh, AMP class of 2021. We all know Aditya. He's familiar to the community as captain of industry, leading Akasa Air and having led Indigo Airlines in a previous avatar. He sits on the board of Oyo Hotels and Homes, Fab India Group, Ras Al Khaimah International Airport, Green Cell Mobility, among several others. He's also an active investor and advisor to many startups, from Blue Tokai to Credit Enabled to Juggernaut, to name just a few. But what's also interesting about Aditya is that despite all of this, he finds the time, energy, bandwidth to be chairperson of SEVA, to teach entrepreneurship at Ashoka University, to mentor female entrepreneurs and professionals with Ladies Who Lead. Thank you, Aditya, for being a part of Alumni on Air once again. And over to you on what promises to be a really insightful discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nupur. Thank you. You know, Niren, first of all, buddy, it's just so amazing to have you here, to talk to you. Whether it's the incredible number of chats and lunches and I don't know, more frolicking that we have done to deep conversations. It's always just so fun and interesting. You know, everybody says like there's no need to introduce the guest, but you know, I think if Nupur had not kind of given that introduction, I think 90% of the people over here would not know the various facets of Niren, right? So there, and amongst all the friends that we have in common, I think there are a bunch of people who know you as a musician, and there's a bunch of people who know you as an FMCG guy, and there's a bunch of people who know you as a hotelier, and a bunch of people who know you as a father and and a philanthropist. So I'm glad Nupur did that introduction. I could see you kind of turning red, but I'm glad we embarrassed you in front of everyone. So hey,
Thank you.
let's peel back 40 years back. Um, you're this restaurant manager at the Taj, right? Um, what was the dream in your eyes at that time, right? Where did you see life going, and what was it like?
So firstly, it's fantastic to be here, and particularly I love seeing so many friends who've
Yep.
dialed in.
Yeah.
I have Ed, who's actually from my AMP batch, which I love seeing him, one of my favorite people, and so many other friends from Yum. So I really really appreciate the opportunity. And Aditya, it's always such a blast to see you. Um, and I noticed that you described me in various versions, and the one thing that was consistently missing was nobody thinks of me as a great athlete. Because I've been trying to play golf all my life and I'm miserable. So it's a real pleasure to see everybody, and I always love these kind of interactions where we can just have a chat and share ideas. So, as you said, I started off, I grew up in Delhi, and I think before I get into it, I want to just share how I met Aditya. I was running Yum India at that time, and I was living in Gurgaon in one of those, my office was on the 12th floor of one of those buildings. And right across from there was Indigo Airlines. And Indigo had just launched, and everyone was like absolutely dazzled by the differentiation of that airline and how good it was and the service and everything else. And I was so inspired. So I said, I must learn customer service from this man who's like, who's this guy? So I actually reached out to him and I said, I want to come and see you and learn from you. So I walk across the building and he was kind enough to say, okay. And I go inside and I see this young guy, you know. I said, life is so unfair. I mean, look at this guy. He's so young and he's like launched an airline and he's doing such an incredible job. And that's how our friendship began. And I've always learned so much from you, Aditya. You're absolutely amazing. When I started my journey, I went to DPS, then Stephens, then did my MBA and joined Tata Administrative Service was my first job. Very honestly, I didn't really know what to expect, but was very sort of fortunate to have experienced the Tata culture. I think which is all about integrity. And what I learned most in my experience there was that irrespective of the environment in which you operate, which is, as we all know, India is a difficult environment, integrity is a personal value and a personal choice for a leader. And it is what a leader does. And there is no excuse for it. There is no excuse not to lead with integrity. And I saw that, demonstrated in so many different ways at this incredible company. And that's what I learned the most there. And so I began there, as you mentioned, because I was started administrative service. I was 24 years old, hadn't done anything in my life, and I was asked to become like the front office manager. And people know that or what that involves. Essentially, you're looking after the rooms division. And suddenly, I was there without having led any team, very very young, and I was leading a group of the bell desk, the front office, and housekeeping, and so on. Had about 200-300 people reporting into me, and I was petrified. Said, why would these people are all like older than I am, and why should they listen to me? And therefore, I think to your question, the only thing I wanted to do was to build my personal credibility, to be credible. And I think to be
Mm,
credible as a way of earning trust. And I realized that to be credible, you have to be willing to learn and
mm,
have to be willing to work harder than everybody else. So because there was nothing else I could do. I had no experience. I had,
mm,
nothing else I could show for myself. So I just immersed myself into just learning and doing every single job from, you know, uh, being at the bell desk and tagging bags and checking in large groups to doing check-ins on the reception desk or checkouts and stuff like that. Doing every single job, demonstrating respect for every single job, and having like a learning mindset of let me demonstrate curiosity and respect for every single job as a way to build my credibility. And that was, I think,
mm,
an important lesson for me uh, right in the beginning with the data,
I
etc.
get that. I get that question a lot, and I'm glad you answered it in your own way. I get that question a lot. That if you did not know anything about the airline business, why would people listen to you? When you came in. I'm glad you answered it. Naren, just I think it was a couple of weeks back, or maybe it was last week. I got a call from a young leader who has built this incredible unicorn in India. Actually, he's a very somebody I have a lot of respect for. And he actually didn't get a call. I got a message, and he wrote me that, sir, something I wanted to ask you, like, people issues drain me. I'm so much better at innovation and technology and driving, things forward. And then we had a bit of a conversation, but the question I wanted to ask you is that in this world where there are so many new, bright young people, who are building these great companies from India for the world, why should they, focus on people with as much passion as they focus on innovation and technology and strategy and go to market and all of those things?
Yeah, I think I really believe that if you think about any organization,
Hmm.
it's a collection of human beings.
Hmm.
And I think an organization is essentially a human experience in the pursuit of enterprise value.
Hmm.
It is primarily a human experience because it's a collection of humans in pursuit of creating something significant, of having an impact. And that impact can be brought about by having a strategy, as you described, to win and all those other elements. But more importantly, executing that strategy.
Hmm.
Right? Strategy is all about, the intellect, and we all get it. You know, everyone gets that. But you don't win through strategy, you win by executing. And execution is not about the head, it's about the heart. It's about inspiring your teams to go above and beyond every single day to be the best version of themselves in whatever role they are in the organization. If you're not able to tap into that spirit and inspire the hearts of people around you, you will not out execute anybody else and therefore not be able to achieve
Hmm.
what you're trying to achieve. So I think to me, an organization is a human experience, and therefore building the right culture, having the right people capability, and being able to inspire people to execute the strategy that you have defined is actually what truly matters. And
So,
therefore,
you know, um, I want to ask you, Naren. I mean, look, we we often say, right, the culture eats strategy for breakfast. But what is unique about the organizations that I've seen you work with, whether it was Yum, um, and I don't know, interesting factoid, when I was a law junior associate, actually, one of the first clients I worked on was Tricon Restaurants, which of course later became Yum. But anyway, whether it was Yum, whether it is Panera, you've been able to kind of, build cultures, build consistency, build execution across countries, across different, nationalities. How'd you do that? I mean, I, I, I can understand, in India, one country or one set of cultures. How do you do that? And then, you're an Indian, educated in India, and you go and start running these giant companies in the US and in various other parts of the world. How did you do that?
so um, so two parts to the question. One is at the individual level, how do you really lead people in different cultures? And then second, how do you create a global culture? I think on the first part, what I've learned is that because I've lived in about 6 different countries and worked across 50 countries. And I've had that, amazing set of adventures with iconic brands and so much fun. So I lived in Holland. I speak a bit of Dutch and German and all that kind of stuff. And it's been an absolute privilege. This is what I've learned. When you are working across cultures, rather than looking for what's different, one has to look for what's similar. with people.
Very interesting.
Look for what's similar, but respect the differences, right? But don't be fixated on what's different. Because, we all know this, that at the end of the day, all of us are human beings. We belong to the human tribe. And if you look past the external differences in how we look and how we sound, deep inside, all of us are the same. We want the same things. We want love. We want respect. We want recognition. We want purpose. Want to lead with compassion. We want to do good in this world. That's how we are wired up, no matter where you are in the world. That's just how we are as human beings. And therefore, if you're able to look past the differences, the superficial differences of accents and languages and physical appearance, and connect to people through their sense of humanity, you can actually connect, lead, and inspire anybody anywhere in the world. And then I have found that the way to do that, the really true way to do that, is through the medium of language. And which is why I'm such a big believer that no matter where I've lived or worked, I've made a lot of effort to learn the local language. Because to connect with people emotionally, you don't want to have any barriers or filters to really understand how they're feeling and what's important to them. So, for example, in Holland, when I was living there, people said, "Why you're mad? Only 15 million people in the world speak Dutch. Why the hell would you want to learn how to speak Dutch?" I said, "But all my people speak Dutch. Like I don't care about every single employee that I have. So how can I role model being a leader in a retail organization when nobody understands me and that everybody's trying to translate things in their head? Just doesn't work." So I think connecting as human beings, I think, is incredible. However, you need to respect the differences. So I'll give you some funny examples. So and I think many of us will relate to it, that growing up in India, I hadn't really lived outside. So when I went to the UK for the first time, I hadn't kind of understood the subtlety of the English language. And for example, when my supervisor said to me, that was a good effort, basically it meant it was shit. It was like terrible. But good effort, like I thought, okay, that's pretty good, but it's no. Or if the supervisor said, "I'd like to have a quiet word with you," it didn't mean that that person wanted to deepen his relationship with me. It meant I'm going to get a bollocking. So you have to understand that, and work with it. In Holland, for example, it's a very egalitarian place. Everybody has an opinion, irrespective of their hierarchy. They don't believe in hierarchy, and everyone wants to be consulted. So in my team, I would consult everybody and lead by consensus. I go to Germany, I try the same trick, and the German team says, "What a weak leader. He's asking us what we should be doing. What the hell is wrong with him? You are the leader. It's your job to lead. Don't ask us. So you have to actually flex on the stylistic differences, but the core humanity and principles remain the same. So that's the first part of your question. The second part is, how do you scale a global culture? I think it comes down to me, culture is a special feeling that you create through common language. That's what culture is. It's a unique feeling that you create through common language, and words are very important. And therefore, if you work in an enterprise where those behaviors are very clearly articulated,
Hmm. Big believer
not
in that. Yeah.
not abstract values, not like
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
level honesty, integrity. No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah.
Behaviors, like do what you say,
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
far more
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful
Yeah.
behavioral
I,
description.
I, I keep saying, Niren, that, there's vision and mission statements are like New Year resolutions. Unless you go out there and really say that, you've got to go for a run, you got to watch what you eat, you're not going to lose weight. It's like coming up. Hey, Niren, um, how much of this sort of empathy came through and got accentuated by some of the challenges and twists and turns in your personal life as a father, husband, or was it always there? Did it intertwine? I know it's your daughter's book is I mean, the book that I have gifted the most to people in my life, as you know. So
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that, Aditya, and you've been with me through that journey. Um, we are shaped by our life's experiences, all of us, and we have two choices. Either you get burdened by it, or you try and seek inspiration from it, and you embrace it and allow it to shape who you are. And I have chosen the latter, which is how can I embrace my losses and become better because of it.
mm,
And I think that my sense of empathy and compassion and care and feeling has been hugely amplified by my losses. I lost my first daughter Tanya when I was 24.
mm,
Just started at the Taj, barely knew what was happening. Had recently gotten married. I promised my wife a wonderful life forever.
mm,
So I was, it was very, very, very heartbreaking to lose my daughter, who was born with a congenital problem, and before we knew anything, she passed away. That was the biggest shock I had in terms of feeling helpless as a father, not having the financial resources to take care of her, and feeling like an
mm,
absolute total failure. That's how I felt.
mm,
I had my son, and fortunately, he's doing great. He's a fantastic musician, very proud of him. And then we had Aisha, who had the same issue, and I hope that people who are on the call are familiar with the story. But the story is, she was born with a similar issue as Tanya, had a bone marrow transplant, but then 18 years later died of a fibrotic lung, which was a complication of the transplant. Losing her was particularly painful because that process was 18 years of my life and of her life. And for 18 years, I was watching my daughter slowly die, as helplessly as a father. And of course, that changes you. That dramatically changes who you are, how you view life. And I think the way in which it has changed me, and as I seek to embrace it, not with despair and anger, but with humility and seeking inspiration, is that you realize that we're all mortal. At the end of the day, everybody on this call, all of us are going to be dead. That's the brutal reality. So, in some ways, what happened to Aisha was unfortunate, but not totally, it was meant to happen. It happens sooner than later. It's going to happen to all of us. And therefore, when I confront that mortality, I'm filled with a deep sense of gratitude
mm,
for being alive, for being alive. And
mm,
then using that gift for something meaningful every
mm,
single day. Let's not waste it. We are alive
mm.
today. Let's make our life count. Let's sort of serve others, help others, do something that is
And I
significant.
and I and I think Naren, I mean, eh, the reason I buy that book so many times and I gift it is that, like, she wrote it till her last breath. And I think the most beautiful story about that book is, if it's called My Little Epiphanies, and if anybody buys it, the cover of it is, I mean, the title is written, in an embossed sort of way, so that if you run your fingers over it, you can feel the letters. Because I think, if I remember, Naren, by that time she couldn't read or see anymore, and that was the only way that she could figure out that the book was actually published. And I think it's just such an incredible, I'd say a life of inspiration, as opposed to her struggles to this thing. So it's
In fact,
incredible.
Yeah, I
Aditya, if
think
you don't
she's.
mind, it's okay with you, Niren. I was actually really moved uh, by The Sky is Pink, by that beautiful movie that captures what you're describing. And as I thought about how to make,
Naren looks a little bit better than Farhan Akhtar, but yeah, okay.
well, you took my line away from me, Aditya. Uh, I have to admit, Niren, that I think in many ways, as I thought about your journey and your story and all the people that have influenced that, whether they're friends or family or professors, etc., I think in many ways we have one particular person to thank for bringing your story to life, for making you a household name in that regard, of spreading your message in a way that perhaps no podcast or interview or webinar could ever do. And as Aditya rightfully pointed out, frankly, forcing Farhan Akhtar to look like an average Joe in the process, but perhaps to make the real Niren Chaudhary look like the true hero. And for that, I think in many ways, we have one individual to thank who I'd like to invite to the stage if Khushbu would be kind enough. I'd love to have one person who has been a maverick in his own right, Mr. Ronnie Screwvala.
Oh, wow.
Ronnie,
Hey,
thank you
This is a
Ronnie.
little
very much.
surprise for you, Ronnie. And
Niren,
this
hi.
pleasure, Niren.
Niren, hi.
Ronnie, what an honor. What a pleasure to see you.
Same here, and what a pleasure to listen to everything you've been saying for the last 15, 20 minutes when I kind of joined in. So I was more mesmerized with that than anything else. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ronnie. It's such an honor, and Kushbut, Nopal, thank you for doing that. Ronnie, you're one of my favorite people, and I'm filled with a huge amount of gratitude for how you helped us take Aisha's inspiring story to the world, and such a delight to see you. So, Aisha, the movie also, as Ronnie knows, has a very sort of it has a moment of incredible serendipity with how it happened and how we came across Shonali, who wrote the script and then
Direct, yeah.
and I don't know if many people know, but Shonali lost her son tragically a year or so before, and her son, who she lost, has the same name as my son, Ishan. And Aisha's one of her dying wish was to see Shonali's movie called Margarita with a Straw that was not released. And because she resonated so deeply with that, and she said, Dad, this is a story about a girl in a wheelchair who people see only as a girl in a wheelchair, but don't see her as a girl with the normal emotions and desires of a young woman. And she says, I feel the same way. People don't see beyond my disability. But I want love. I want to fall in love. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to experience all the wonderful things that life has. So can I see this movie? So I wrote to Shonali at that time before she passed away, and Shonali was so consumed by her own, difficulty that I couldn't get hold of her. And then Aisha passed, and it always stayed in my mind, and I felt it was somewhat unfulfilled. And then magically, it all happened, and Shonali got in touch with us, and Sid got involved, Ronnie got involved, and we had the best of the best in the industry, who put in their hearts and and their passion into this incredible project, for which I'm eternally grateful. So, Ronnie, it's fantastic to see you.
No, and actually, just to add to that story, which is definitely and serendipity, I think but that's my middle name because I believe most of everything that happens really is with serendipity and what meant to be. And I remember some of the moments that we spent at the Toronto Festival, actually, because the film got invited to the Toronto Festival. I think it got the right kind of canvas there. But just to add to that, I think for us to make cinema, this was really as real a story as it gets. And I think that connect with people, that movies and storytelling capture real emotions. And I think I heard you a fair bit right now talking a little bit about memories and things like that. And I do feel that the way in the narrative that even Shonali and the director brought out was the sense of just to face such cathartic reality with a little bit of sense of humor goes such a long way. And I think more than what the story told, and what Farhan did as character and what Priyanka did as the character, I think it was much more that we could communicate to everyone here on this and everyone listening in here, that when you're dealing with that kind of reality and you're dealing with that kind of catharticness, but you're also dealing with an eventuality that is going to occur in some sense. But yet you can make the best of every moment with humor. And I think that, Aisha did that, the family did that. I think a lot of her characteristics from whatever I took out, having not ever met her, was, I guess, coming from you, Niren, as the father, right? Because just the fact that the words you used a little earlier, that you have to embrace it and you have to get inspired by it. The other ways you can just be consumed by it. So I think for us, the movie was very special because it portrayed reality. And I think it also allowed everyone to feel very human, that if you need to let go, but at the same time, humor can play a role, and people in the midst of it can actually do that. So to me, that was the most poignant part of the connection that made with everyone else.
Thank you, Ronnie, and I think I have to give I think the entire credit for the incredible human that Aisha is is my wife. I think my wife is an absolute rock star, and because she was her constant companion. I was just trying to keep it together.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I was just like trying to saying, okay, man,
Yeah.
what do I do? How do I like keep this thing together? But I think to your point, Aisha. So for everybody, this is the summary of it. Aisha was 13 when we told her you have 5 years to live. Just think about that. For everybody who has kids, you're told that it's like a death sentence. Five
Yeah.
years to live, you're going to die, and we were honest with her. We told her that, and yet her somehow, she had this. When you confront mortality, I think you become incredibly, suddenly have innate wisdom. And she, rather than saying, "Oh my God, I only have 5 years to live," she said, "Oh boy, at least I have 5 years to live." And I think it is that mindset of focusing on what you have
Yeah.
and making the most of what you have as opposed to despairing for what you have lost or what you cannot have is such an incredible lesson, which I have then tried to use in my life. And I continue to do that. When I'm confronted with difficulties, I just step back and say, okay, what do I have control over? What can I do? And let me focus on that as opposed to thinking about what I have no control over.
Yeah. And maybe with Aditya's permission, maybe I'll just ask one question in connection with that, actually.
Of course, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think, and then I think I heard, as I said, 20 minutes, and I think everyone here is catching up on nuggets and gems from this conversation with you. But just obviously, resilience stands out as something because you can't be without resilience. But I was probing a little bit deeper that when I hear what you're saying, it's a little difficult to grasp or believe that there won't be still, in spite of all this, moments of extreme weakness. And I think we all go through our abyss, not maybe as deep an abyss as losing somebody who's a child to you. That would be the worst of the abyss. But there's so many things that we do in real life, in work, and whatever else. So for everything that you've said here in terms of resilience and embracing it, I'm sure there is still that complete moment of caving in and giving in to a little bit of that moment of weakness. And I'd just love to hear, how does that abyss still recur for you, and how do you deal with that abyss, if at all, without stirring up any
No,
emotions, if I
no,
can?
no, absolutely, Ronnie. I think that's a very important question. I think also relevant for everybody because I think we all, to be human is to have failures and losses. That's part of our human journey. The definition might be different, but we all go through the same cycle repeatedly. And the thing is, it doesn't happen once; it keeps happening all the time. So I think how to deal with it, and I'd love to share. So I think the what I have learned is that being resilient in a moment is the outcome of a process of going through the abyss and then coming out of it, and then falling into the abyss and then coming out of it. And it is not sort of it's not a given that you can always stay above it. You will collapse, you will actually feel the pain. And like I often say, I have the shape of Aisha in as a whole in my heart, like it's always there and it'll always be there. This is what I've learned. I have learned that whenever you're dealing with something that's beyond your control, the first thing, as we all know, is, and we're all taught this in our spiritual practices, is accepting, what is inevitable. We all know that. And we ask for strength. Okay, let me accept what I cannot change. We know that. But I've learned that that is not enough. Beyond that, the next step always is to forgive yourself. I have found that most of us actually blame ourselves a lot for whatever happens, even if it is outside of our control. And therefore, consciously forgiving yourself is a very important cathartic first step. I felt, and I still feel, that I let my kids down. I failed as a father. So I have to consciously tell myself, no, you did the best that you could. So forgiveness is the second thing. The third transformational thing that I have learned is self-love. I feel that the only way to get out of an abyss is actually to embrace and hug yourself and to love yourself again. And only by loving yourself again can you love other people. You cannot give to others what you don't have. And therefore, loving yourself, I think, is nothing very esoteric. To me, it's very simple as do what your truly your heart desires. Like all of us have this one day I will list. One day I will go to Machu Picchu. One day I will go on a world tour. One day I will write a book. One day I'll play golf. One day I'll write a song. And self love to me is that one day is right now. Do it now. Make that time for yourself and fulfill your dreams and show yourself that you love yourself, that you're important. And I've done a lot of that over the last few years in different ways, including, by the way, going to Harvard. AMP was an act of self love for me. Like in India, I always grew up with this, oh, I want to go to Harvard, like, couldn't do it. And therefore, it was a process of healing. So, acceptance, forgiveness, self love. And then finally, I think as human beings, to get out of an abyss, you need hope. I think as human beings, if we don't have hope, we have nothing. And the only way to get hope, which is almost like a rope that is bringing you out as you climb out, is a desire to serve. I think as human beings deep inside, we're just wired to serve others, because that's when we are happiest, is when we're doing something good. And I think using that as a rope that's going to pull you out is how I'm trying to live my life. That when I again keep slipping back into the abyss, I say, okay, how do I create hope for myself? By serving others. And I found that to be the cycle that I keep going through repeatedly, sometimes multiple times in a day, multiple times in a month, in a year, and it requires constant work. And that's what I wanted to share. That that's what I have learned, and that's how I'm trying to move forward.
And maybe just a follow up on that, and I think it's relevant for everybody here. And again, retrospect to failure or whatever else. But every time you go and collapse into that abyss, is that making the next recovery weaker or stronger?
I think it's becomes stronger every single time,
Right.
because now you have like a muscle. It's like going to the gym. It's like you're exercising your body. You meditate to exercise your spirit. I think this is the resilience treadmill. Acceptance, forgiveness, self-love, hope, and you're doing that again and again and again and again, and then I think the cycle becomes shorter and faster. And I find that, of course, I still have failures, setbacks. I feel I feel terrible, and then I remind myself, and then again I'll go for a run, or I'll do something to like be good to myself, and then I find the energy and say, okay, now how do I create hope? So I think to me, I'm finding that it becomes more of a
Yeah.
habit, more of a way in which you start processing things changes. Like I really believe that for all of us, everything changes in our life all the time. But who we are is a function not of what happens to us, but how we respond to what happens to us. And how we respond to what happens to us is a function of how we speak to ourselves in our mind. We speak most actually to ourselves, and there is research to show that 70% of what we say to ourselves is always negative, and we're beating ourselves every single day. And I think if we are more aware of our inner dialogue and inner conversations, I think that can be powerful and transformative in creating this resilience muscle of, okay, accept, forgive, love, hope.
Right. I'm really glad they asked
Fabulous.
me to join. Niren, is all I can say. Thank you.
Well,
Really.
thank you, Ronnie. Thanks for making the
Ronnie, what a
time. And
pleasure. Yeah, what a pleasure. And
Absolutely.
please give my best to Sid. And I love you guys dearly for what you've helped us accomplish.
We're
Thank you,
very proud of
Ronnie.
you too. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ronnie.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. On behalf of the
Thank you.
alumni community, we're really grateful that you could shed this new lens through which we could see Niren. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
so, so
Back
Niren,
to you.
you're back at Harvard now as a
Yes.
fellow this time.
Yes.
No surprises. You constantly keep reinventing yourself and kind of evolving, I think. You're writing 2 books. So tell us about that, because more people in the world, I keep saying, more people in the world need to listen to what you have to say and share. So what are these 2 books? What are you working on, and how's it back to be back on campus?
So, uh, like I said, everything changes. And And I think it's like what really matters is how well you roll with the punches, and then still get up and keep moving and keep trying to do your very best, and through the cycle of evolution that we talked about, of being resilient. So last year I became chairman of the company. I turned 60, which was heartbreaking. I thought I would never turn 60. I used to think that people who are
Yeah,
60
have you
are
seen
like,
that? Have you seen that? Have you seen that scene out of Friends where Joey discovers that he's like, "Why God? Why me?" Like,
yeah, why me?
I can see,
Yeah.
I can see you there, Naren. Knowing you, I can feel that pain.
I said, what the hell is this? Just yesterday,
Knowing
people
you, you
said,
must have said something else, but okay, we'll go with that.
I said, like, what the hell happened? Like, just a few days back, people told me I was the youngest guy in the room. Look at this hot young talent. This guy will go all the way. He's amazing, incredible. Look at his energy. And now people are saying, like, somebody bring in the wheelchair, got to wheel this old guy out, give him a cigar and a whiskey to drink, ask him to grow a belly, and then just be a chairman and sit quietly in a corner. No, I think it was, as I joke a little bit, it was partially true. I mean, it was like a body blow, because I said, if I'm not the CEO, like, who am I? Like, I've been running companies, and I love people, I love teams, I love creating, I love sort of getting up in the morning, having problems to solve. What the hell will I do? And then I had this epiphany of my self worth should not be what I do, but who I am, who I am. And at first, when I said that to myself, I didn't believe it. I said, that's bullshit. But I kept repeating it to myself. And eventually I said, yeah, actually, this is inspiring. So, because who I am can be infinitely accretive. And therefore, I think with the desire to pivot to my future life, and my future life, I want to dedicate myself to be of service, to be a catalyst to help other people become much better, and to help unlock the potential and greatness in other people. I want to dedicate my life to that. So, with that intent, because that really inspires me for all the reasons we've just discussed, I said I need to actually refuel the jets. Like, I want to, like,
Hmm.
really go back to my home of inspiration, which is Harvard. And I still remember AMP was a transformative experience for me at a very difficult time. Made many enduring friendships, including Ed, who's on this call, um, and just the magical experience of being at college. But I think more than the academic input, it's the people that you meet and the friendships that you create and the memories, and the experiences that you have. So I said,
Hmm.
okay, I want to go back, but I want to do it for a longer period. And I found this incredible program called the Fellowship, which is for a year. And I'm
Hmm.
there for a year. I've done half a semester. I'm doing a second half, and I'll be
Hmm.
done by the end of the year. But the two books that you asked about are, one is
Hmm.
actually interestingly called Everything Changes. What I was talking
Hmm.
about to Ronnie earlier,
Hmm.
the power of resilience, and I'm
Hmm.
unpacking that in my book. The second book
Hmm.
is called The Tree of Life. Three, as in like
Hmm.
the tree of life,
Hmm.
tree of
Hmm.
life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it essentially says, to live a life of impact and meaning, there are three things you need to do: self mastery, then build trust with other people, and then impact the world. And I'm
Hmm.
working on both of those projects. And I have to tell you, I'm having incredible fun doing it.
Hmm. That's amazing. So let's bring Aditi into the conversation. So you and Aditi have been married now for 37 years now? 37 years?
38
Yeah,
years.
38
38.
years. And you guys renewed your vows a couple of years back, right?
Yeah, and you were
So
there.
so yeah, so so I mean, turning 60, getting married again, like, I mean, you're really rocking it. So on that note, like, what is the role that rock music has played in your life? And because I can't think of Niren without, you know the musician Niren. And for people who know him, they probably know this, but people who don't, I mean, he's not just a bathroom singer, drawing room musician type of guy. He actually has a band, and he plays regularly, and it's a pretty intense and an active part of his life. So tell
Yeah.
us about Niren the rock star.
Well, Aditi is a love of my life and my best friend. I met her when she was 14. I was 16. I looked at her and told her, I'm going to marry you. She didn't quite say the same thing to me. Um, and then, ironically, actually, I picked up the guitar, and everything I do actually was to try and
I don't know
impress
if
her.
you guys can see, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's them. That's them.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Just about to get married the second time.
That's right. So everything that I've, tried to do, like play music to impress her. I do martial arts to impress her, learn languages to impress her, do well at work to impress her, like everything. And I keep failing miserably. She's still not impressed. And we're like 45 years later, and she still tells me I suck and I'm full of shit. So, uh, but and I think for all of us listening to this call and who are sometimes desirous of maybe how would it feel to be with somebody else, like, and whose minds drift here and there, I would strongly recommend get married to the same person again. So that's why I got married to her. I said, I've always dreamt of having a second wife. So why don't I marry the same girl again a second time? So after 30 years, we Aditya was invited to that. We actually had a wedding ceremony, and everybody came dressed up like Baratis, and we exchanged our vows. And it's like being married again to married to another woman. Um, so I think music has been a deep part of who I am, and I just feel music is such an incredible way to connect, and to inspire and to exchange emotion. And my son, who I was sharing, is a professional musician. He has a band called Memba, MEMBA. I must give that a shout out, so uh, people can go and actually look it up on Spotify. And my daughter-in-law's band is called Evangea, and both of them are now playing in massive crowds. They recently played at Red Rocks in Denver in the US, 15,000 people. And I
Wow.
was one of the people in the audience looking very proudly at my son and my daughter-in-law, incredible musicians. So they're the real deal. I'm kind of like a wannabe. I want my son's life. And I wish I had a father like me who could pay for the life that my son has. you know so because imagine my son, wakes up in the morning with this beautiful girl he's married to. He meditates, he has a green smoothie shake, and then he makes music all day, and he complains that its life is tough. That's the kind of life I want. you know so music is very therapeutic. And here's the thing: for anybody who's an aspiring musician, it's easy to do it and then lose interest. Like, I've met so many people who say, oh, when I was young I used to play the guitar, or I will one day learn the instrument. I used to be good but I stopped playing. I think it's like one of those things of showing self love is to stick with it. So I still take lessons. I have two guitar teachers every weekend, I have two vocal teachers every weekend, and I find that's the only way I can keep improving. And the only sad thing is that my teachers are now less than half my age. I mean, every year the teachers are getting younger and younger, and I'm getting older and older. And it's like heartbreaking to see how long I've been on planet Earth and how bad I am compared to these kids who are incredibly talented. So that's the journey of music. I write my own music, by the way. I've got my own stuff on Spotify. I've got only one follower, which is my wife, and therefore I'm appealing to all of you to perhaps go there and look me up and give me a few likes. I've written songs on Aisha, on Tanya, on my wife, and stuff like that. But I love music. I have a music studio here in this room that I'm speaking from. I got guitars all around me, so I
So
look sort
Niren,
of
I've got to, yeah, so Niren, I've got to, without asking you, I had the old YouTube video of your thin wedding after 35 years. I just put it on the chat box if people want to get to know Niren or Aditya any better.
Oh boy.
So, hey, Niren, we got a few more minutes, and since you've got guitars at your arm's length, we got to kind of have you tell us, let's see, the rubber hits the road. Let's see if Naren plays the guitar really.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's just caveat is the sound will be crap because Zoom is not very good, but who cares?
It'll
And
be so much better than my guitar skills then.
and I thought what I'll do is like play one of my own compositions,
That'd be
because we all do
fantastic.
covers, like is okay, but your own music is fun. And I think the real backstory is that I got the reputation of being a singing CEO, and most of my companies where I worked, and it just brought home to me the importance of having fun in a culture. And I've now, as I said, I've worked and lived in 6 countries, worked in 50. And when I meet people, like there's Shiva on this call as well, who I worked with in the past, and a few others, I can promise you this: when they meet me and they say, "Man, like we really miss the good old days," I said, "Yeah, what do you miss?" I thought they'll tell me about incredible leadership and all that. None of that. They said you tell good jokes and you're a good musician. So the only thing people remember is actually the emotional connection. And everything else is by the way. And I have found that as leaders, if you're willing to just be authentic and be vulnerable and make a fool of ourselves, like I speak these different languages with a terrible accent. Imagine me speaking German with an Indian Dutch accent. It's horrible. But people say, "Wow, like this guy, at least he's not afraid of trying." So I would say, as leaders, if you're not afraid of trying and you're willing to make a fool of yourselves, I think you actually become more accessible, because people then tell you the truth. People then are not afraid of you, and they say, "Okay, he's just another regular guy." And therefore, at Panera, when I was leading the company, every time we had a new product, a song used to pop out of my head, you know. And I used to have these town halls, and along with the product launch, I'd pull out my guitar and start jamming these songs. I would shut the doors, privilege of being a CEO, so nobody could run out, and ask everybody to sort of join in, which they had to do because I was leading the company. I also asked the marketing guy. I said, do you think these songs are good? Maybe like one of our ads. He said, don't even go there. so, so the team helped me in check. So I have my guitar here. Magically, it appears, and I think
Awesome.
I'll do a song on pizza. So I think so. It's a little more interesting than maybe singing Eric Clapton or Ed Sheeran, etc. So this song I wrote some time back on a pizza. Double zero dough, ingredients that are fresh, messy abundance crafted by a chef. Chicken cheese margarita, we've got for you flatbread pizza. Flatbread pizza, flatbread pizza, flatbread pizza, flatbread pizza, flatbread pizza. All right.
I wish we could unmute everyone's lines right now. You'd have
Love it.
round of applause right now. I think that was probably
and
the
by
most
the
special
by the
moment.
way, by the way, Niren, that's me singing with Changs on stage. So both of us should jam someday together.
Oh man, thank you for letting me do that. I always love it, but I don't know if the sound
Absolutely
is very good, but-
fantastic. Thank you. Well, we still have a couple of more minutes. I know the chat room is abuzz with like everybody having such a great time and like really enjoying every moment of this. So in case someone has any quick questions, maybe we can take a couple of questions before we let Naren go. But I mean, there are just so many compliments on the chat room. People sort of from amazing learnings to they just love the the authenticity of this session. So
I saw
Naren, as always,
another friend, Sajan, also is here. Sajan's great to see
yeah.
you in the chat, and yeah, and I love helping other people. That's my mission, and I'm very active on social media. You can reach out to me. We are part of the HPS community.
Yeah, I follow you on LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn posts are always just so relatable. I mean, they're inspiring, but they're also relatable. And for anybody who's leading a large organization, there, if not anything else, there are just some ideas that one can literally copy paste from Naren's work at any of these companies. So just fantastic. Yeah. So while I have that while we're so at least one person says you don't look 60, Niren.
Oh,
So
Jyoti. Oh, my
Yes,
friend Jyoti is here.
how are
Jyoti, you're
you?
such, oh, it's so wonderful. I didn't realize you're here as well.
After asking to get onto this chat, I thought I should at least be here and see what you had to say. I can
Oh,
tell us.
think for everybody. I remember Niren at the Taj when he talked about working really hard. He was there at the back office till very late hours at this hotel in Delhi. That's what I remember about him. And the other thing when he said about helping people, I wanted to add, whenever I've called Niren, and I think the last time was for him to speak at a general managers conference, he has willingly come. And I think he has kept in touch with most of his friends at the Taj and at Yum in later years. So good to see you, Niren.
Jyoti, it's fabulous to see you. You're one of my all-time favorite people.
Take care.
So lovely of you for you to join and share that story about Niren.
What an incredible session, Niren. I mean, I have had the privilege of speaking with many incredible leaders during my otherwise thankless role when it comes to being a part of Alumni on Air. But these are the, I'd say, golden nuggets. These are the moments that make it so worthwhile. And I have to say today, Alumni on Air was just skyrocketed into another stratosphere. I mean, you are seeing the comments in the chat box, I'm sure. I felt at moments goosebumps. I felt like laughing. I felt like crying. You brought out almost every emotion. And I think in this brief 60 minutes, how does one leader come across so authentic, so honest, yet so insightful and so relevant to today's world? It's really amazing. I mean, I am so grateful. And on behalf of the entire alumni community, we are super lucky for you to have agreed to be a part of Alumni on Air. You have, you're really, what to me really struck out is this perpetual pursuit of being the best version of yourself. This idea of whether it's a sportsman or whether it's a musician, whether it's a leader, whether it's the husband, you have really taught us that no matter what role you're taking on, you are continuing to learn and grow and improve in those roles. And I loved how you described that journey of going to the abyss and coming out. I think that to me was particularly special. It reminded me, and given we're all three AMP alums here in many ways, Ranjit Gulati often quotes Nelson Mandela, right? When he talks about courage, and he says that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And in some ways, your ability to go through the abyss, yet come out, not avoid it, but go through it and sort of embrace the complexity of those emotions, I think to me was just such an incredible acknowledgement to what many leaders go through in different walks of life. So that was particularly special for me. Thank you so very much on behalf of the HBS alumni community and on behalf of the HBS India Research Center for agreeing to spend this hour with us. We're so, so grateful.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. It's wonderful to see so many friends and Aditya. It's always, I mean, like you're such an incredible human and a leader. I love
Thank you,
seeing
buddy.
you, talking to you, and please know that I'm a very committed a part of the HBS community, and feel free to reach out if I can help in any way. I'd be honored to do that.
Amazing. You might have many folks tapping your shoulder on that, Niren. Thank you for that very generous offer. And Aditya, beyond the history and the chemistry you clearly share with Niren, I knew before we decided on Niren almost, Aditya was already there on scene. And I think that decision and that call early on was clearly the right one. I could not have found a better moderator for today's discussion.
It's absolutely my pleasure. It's my privilege to have a chat with Niren and to bring out the life of Niren, in as much as we could in 60 minutes. So, buddy, it's always great to see you. Can't wait to see you again.
Thank you.
I hope both of you will remain committed in supporting the club's activities, and we look forward to keeping you engaged. And I really hope that you look back at this evening fondly. A special shout out and word of thanks to Mr. Ronnie Screwvala, who gave us a new lens and another lens
That was
Yeah.
amazing. And Nupur, if you can connect me to him separately, I think.
Absolutely, 100% without a doubt, right after this. So thank you, Ronnie, for being a part of today's session. And to all our alums and members, thank you for joining us and your participation. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion. And for all this wonderful feedback that you shared with us on the chat, please do also share it on the Alumni WhatsApp groups, share it on your social media handles, tag us, comment, share. The feedback is what drives further engagement, allows more and more people to understand the value of these sessions. So I hope you'll be generous enough and kind enough to do that. Till we meet again, I hope you all will stay safe and stay well. Until then, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Niren. Bye, Aditya.
Bye.